Hello there, football fans. Welcome to the Mercurial Trequartistas Gamecast, your weekly fix of footballing flair, finesse, fireworks, and folklore. By way of introduction, I'm Pathan, and joining me is my co-host, a man who is feared and respected in equal measure by pundits the world over. Mark, how are we feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good, and yeah, happy to say I completely dodged all of the FFP rules.
So, what's on the menu today? Today, we herald the return of the Championship. The Premier League is less than a week away from its start. And we will also follow stories from the Scottish League. So, without further ado, let's begin with the return of the mighty Championship. So, it kicked off on Friday, August the 14th, with Wolves hosting Blackburn Rovers at Molineux under the lights. I believe that West Ham are the clear favourites for an immediate return to the Premier League, along with Norwich, Sheffield United, and Southampton, possibly Borough. They will all be in the mix as well. So the Wolves opener, um, it was 2-2. They drew 2-2 with Blackburn in the opening fixture. And looking at the other teams, so Burnley, they struck twice quite late on, including an 83rd minute penalty. So they denied West Ham 3 points in a 2-2 draw at Turf Moor. Southampton's tough run of things, it continued. So they played their first league fixture since the Spygate saga. They lost 2-1 to Watford. And their players were heckled about the espionage affair, both on and off the pitch. And as you know, they were given a 6 point deduction, but that's been reduced to 4 points. So at the moment, they sit at the bottom of the championship on minus 4 points. Norwich, who are also sort of believed to be amongst the favourites, they lost at home to West Brom. And I'll just do a quick roundup of the other teams. So Millwall, Swansea, Bolton, Charlton, Borough, and Watford, who I've mentioned, they all began with wins. But Queen's Park Rangers, they sit at top of the table after a 3-1 opening day victory. And Cardiff play Wrexham tonight on Monday night in what should be a very, very tasty Welsh derby. Mark, we have covered a lot, lost the championship in the last few months. Any thoughts on who might be coming up? I mean, I've stated who my favourites are, but any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I don't think you can look too far from West Ham, really. I think they're going to be the team to catch as the season goes on, and a little bit unlucky with the match yesterday. 2-goal lead, finished 2-2, but that was an all Premier League encounter this time last year, so you know. Um, Good local derby win for Bolton as well. Their first match back in the Championship after a little holiday away. So yeah, I think they can be happy with that. And yeah, Southampton, they're gonna have to get used to being the team that everybody loves to hate because I don't think this is going to be an isolated game. It's abuse week in, week out, and it's all of their own making. Well, yeah, if they are to proceed this year, they're gonna have to just go full on siege mentality because, yeah, it was it wasn't a great end to the season for them last year, and it doesn't look like the rest of the championship are gonna let them forget it.
Well, I think things might ease up if they get promoted to the Premier League. I think it's just that other teams in the Championship, it's still quite a sour point what happened last season with Spygate. So I agree, but they should be up there. I'm
Yeah.
quite sure of that.
Southampton Middlesbrough matches are going to be tasty this year.
Definitely wants to watch. Okay, if we turn our attention to the Premier League, there's a lot of stories in the build-up to the league starting. So let's start with Liverpool. FSG have agreed to sell a minority stake in Liverpool FC to 1892 Holdings. So this is a consortium led by various individuals, including a chap called Amit Bhatia and Amazon's Jeff Bezos. So the stake is believed to be around 30% of the club, and it's worth upwards of 1.5 billion pounds. So that would mean the club is now valued at well over 4.5 billion pounds, and it's impressive from a business point of view. So it just shows that it's worth now more than 15 times what FSG paid to buy Liverpool in 2010. I believe from memory, they purchased the club for around 300 million-ish that year. So it's appreciated by more than 1,400%, which is hugely impressive. And so the deal marks Jeff Bezos' first ever investment in the sports vehicle. I believe he was linked with the American team called the Seattle Seahawks, but nothing ever came to that. But crucially, the consortium apparently hold an option to become the majority stakeholder in Liverpool in the next 12 months at an increased valuation of around £8 billion. So they would have first refusal should FSG ever decide to sell a controlling stake. Sources have stressed that this framework is not a guarantee of any future transaction, and for the time being, FSG they continue to sort of hold ownership. But who knows in like 12 months' time what could happen? But that's a lot of change at Liverpool, Mark. I mean, some quite heavy duty individuals have sort of come on board to the club. What do you think it means for the club? In a new coach, they are looking to bring in new players. It's a new era, both on and off the pitch.
It's a phenomenal financial story from the club being on the floor and what hours from bankruptcy to being bought for 300 million to now all these years later being a multi-league title winners, Champions League winners, and a multi-billion pound club is it's a financial success story. But this deal looks like the precursor to maybe FSG phasing their involvement out and these new guys phasing their involvement up. We'll have to wait and see how things develop with the investment side of it. Uh, I had a, it's been a strange summer because there's not been that many transfers in, and it did sort of make you suspect, were they waiting for this deal to be done before making any serious moves in the transfer market? It's probably not going to be enough time to make any sort of serious spends. Maybe be looking to close out one or two deals. But I think the fact that the major summer business wasn't done before this deal either suggests they were unwilling to commit to transfers till after it had been done, or they're a little bit wary of acting before the new bosses had the seat on the board. Who knows? Weirdly enough, I did actually catch the Social Network film the other day, and Andrew Garfield plays Eduardo Severin in that film. So it's a little bit of research there for Anfield there.
Yeah. Just a quick note on Liverpool. On the pitch, I believe that they finished their pre-season fixtures strongly. They had an assured 2-0 win against Italian side Como on the weekend just gone. They've leaked goals in their previous two games. I believe they were against Leeds and Monaco. But this time around, they had both Xhaka and their new defender from Barca, Araujo, and they both played, and the team looked quite assured at the back. And Xhaka, I believe he scored a goal as well. But I don't know if you saw the game or have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, it was a solid performance. Um, Jacquet was solid, and then when he went off, Arujo was also solid. He looks a bit of a mad one though. He does look like he's well up for chucking himself at anything going. So yeah, I don't think there's gonna. I think there might be the odd red card here, but he's enthusiastic, committed, and you want that in your defence. Yeah, so it was a solid enough performance. I think maybe people jumped on a bit of a negative bandwagon early on in pre-season. There'd been a couple of games where they'd lost two-goal leads. The teams that they finished up with were quite far away from the team that they will be showing up in the Premier League. A lot of youth players on there. And whilst a couple of them did do really well, losing a two-goal lead against Leeds, losing against Monaco, the teams that finished those two games were not the team that'll play in the Premier League. So pre-season friendlies, they don't really matter. But nice to get a decent win and a clean sheet in the last one.
We move on to St James Park. So Newcastle have appointed, I think he's called Matthias Gisel as their head coach following Eddie Howe's exit. I think he signed a 4-year deal at St James Park. I think it was 9.5 million pounds compensation to Saudi side Al Ahly, and that's who Jaisal came from. I believe the club they described him as the standout candidate following a very thorough, rigorous, and confidential process of recruitment. He inherits the squad in transition after the departures of Anthony Gordon, Tonali, and Bruno Guimaraes. They play Liverpool in the opening fixture of the season. Any thoughts on how it might go for him and for Newcastle in the opening fixture?
I don't know. This doesn't look good, does it? It's not a good outlook for the season. One win in six preseason matches and averaging one goal per game. Uh, I think they got a 1-1 draw against Strasbourg this weekend, lost on penalties. This Newcastle team is also going to look quite far away from what we're used to seeing. No Gomez, that's going to be a big loss for them. But Dan Burn did sort of say over the weekend, Newcastle at their best when the backs against the wall and they've got something to fight for, something to prove. So they're probably going to need a quite a lot of that over this season. Um, I suspect it won't be great. It'll be a bit messy, but this year the team's coming up from the Championship. I don't really expect them to make a go of it this year. So if they, stay above them, if it's a year in transition,
Yeah.
just don't go down. Don't slip through the net. And I think if they can get away with that, then they can be happy and hopefully rebuild again because they've lost a lot of good quality players here. And yeah, I think they're going to realise just how much Guimaraes and Gordon would bring into that table.
And Eddie Howe as well. Let's not forget him.
Yeah, Eddie Howe. I mean, Eddie Howe, that interview after losing the friendly to Bristol, he looked bereft. He looked like a guy who'd literally had his team just torn apart. Not, I mean, okay, it was 4-1 on the pitch, but to lose so many players in in what, 2 seasons? Because you got Isak the year before as well going. That team was Newcastle's first trophy team for many a year, and the rug's just been pulled out completely from under them, and now they've got to go right back to the start and build again. And right now, I don't think they have the players that are as good as the players that they've lost. So it's going to take a while, unfortunately. The year in transition might turn into 2 years in transition. I think it's going to take multiple windows here for them to build it back up again.
They just need to sort of stay up, as you say, but it's not going to be easy for them. But let's wish them well, and the new coach as well. If we focus a bit now on Rodri, it's looking increasingly likely that he's going to leave Man City for Barcelona. So I understand that Real were also interested in signing him, but he expressed a clear preference for Barca. I think it's going to be a fee in the region of about 35 to like 45 million, though I could be wrong with that. I mean, I think he's in the final year of his contract at City, so it's not going to be a huge fee. City are looking at Buadi of Morocco, who had a very good World Cup, and also Enzo Fernandez at Chelsea. Change at the Eastlands, and off the back of that, so yesterday it was Charity Shield and City. They suffered a very chastening loss to Arsenal. It was 3-0 to Arsenal. First half goals from Calafiori and Havertz, and Odegaard scored in the 48th minute as well. It means Arsenal collect their first trophy this season. But I think people have expressed a lot of shock over how disjointed City looked. So a lot of work to do for Enzo Maresca. But any thoughts on City, Mark?
Well, it's looking like a bit of all right business, really. I think 65 million was mooted as the transfer amount. And Barcelona coming straight in with a hijack. I mean, that's a bit of old-fashioned, late notice transfer shenanigans going on there. I like it. um, yeah, I think they're going to miss Rodri. I think they're going to miss Rodri a lot. Charity Shield, it's best not to try not to read too much into that. It is still technically a bit of a friendly. It's a bit of a money raiser, and statistically speaking, the Community Shield winners don't tend to win the league. I think City are probably the only recent history team that have maybe bucked that trend.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I was Arsenal, wouldn't be getting too ahead of myself. If I was City, wouldn't be too worried. It's a long season, and the title's not decided by the Community Shield. Although I will say that goal from Odegaard, where he sat the keeper down, naughty boy.
Move on to Man U. So last week, I mean, they drew 1-1 with Leeds as a sold-out friendly at Craig Park in Dublin. But what has been noticeable is that Bruno Fernandes, he's growing a very nice partnership with Tielemans, who they signed from Villa. They are looking pretty good together. And Marcus Rashford, he didn't feature in the friendly, but I believe that his situation even now is still unresolved, and he's mentioned that he wants to join a top club in Europe, or he wants to stay at United. It's not looking bad for United. I still think their squad's a bit thin, in terms of what they have to do, playing the league, playing the League Cup, playing the FA Cup, and the Champions League. And I know things haven't gone great for them the last few seasons, but they are still United. The expectation is always going to be there for them to sort of challenge for trophies. So thin squad, but how do you think they will do in the season ahead?
Ooh, um, I might be a little controversial on this one. I don't think they're going to have a good season.
Okay.
I think we could be looking at sort of like, shades of Solskjaer here. Carrick did well, under the temporary contract. Now he's got the job. Down the pressure's on. Um, and AC Milan were incredibly good for that win. Milan had a bit of a shaky pre-season themselves. And then for whatever reason, I think rumors started coming out that people internally at Man United were looking forward to getting one over on Amorim and showing him what's what and all this kind of thing. And it's like, okay, you're giving it the big talk before a friendly, and it completely backfired because Milan were all up for it. They were ready for the scrap. They were fighting it out. 2-1 down, 1-4-2. So they can be very happy with that. And also, those Man United players know how rigid Amorim sticks to his formational play. They know that system inside out. They did not look like they knew how to play against it. Milan, little triangles, passing, counters. It was all plays that this same team had been coached heavily in for, a good year or two beforehand. And they didn't know how to deal with it. Fernandez, I mean, there's still rumours flying that he might not be sticking around. And two penalty misses in pre-season is the mind on the pitch at the moment. Maybe he is considering offers elsewhere.
Mm.
It will be interesting to see how they do with the extra fixtures. I think they were certainly a team that benefited from only having the league to go for in the latter stages of the season. And it's still worth remembering there are a lot of teams that dropped off last year that you would not expect to have as bad a year this year. So yeah, they could be fighting it out to try and get Champions League qualification this year. I think we could be looking at six teams fighting for four places. You know, unless something happens in the European and we have English winners again. Who knows?
Let's watch this space, but a manager scorned, they usually come back and win against their former clubs. I mean, we've seen it with Souness, we've seen it with Jose so many times. And with Amorim, certainly against United, he knew exactly what to do to unlock their team, and they played very well in that friendly.
It could be argued Amorim knew how to make Man United lose.
Indeed. Now, after this, if we move on to Atletico Madrid and Arsenal, so the player that we want to focus on is Julian Alvarez. So Arsenal have been keen on both Vinicius and Alvarez all summer, but Vinicius is apparently staying at Real now. He's made that very, very clear. For Alvarez, he's informed Atletico that he wants to leave, but they have said that they will not sell him to Barca. He's also keen on a move to Barca, but they are willing to sell him to a club outside Spain. Arsenal are in pole position for him. I think he's a brilliant striker. I mean, he was so good at City a few years ago, but he wanted to be the main man. And Haaland is obviously the main man at City, so Pep couldn't allow him that, so he moved on to Atletico. But I think he'll be superb if he signs for Arsenal. But do you think it'll go through, or it be January?
Really don't know. I mean, it is getting a bit late in the day now, isn't it, for getting transfers over the line? We're sort of seeing this more with each season. There's a little bit of brinkmanship going on. I mean, we saw it with Isak, where clubs are holding on until the bitter end, whether that's to try and get a little bit more money out of the deal to get it over the line, or clubs really are being more cautious about selling to rivals. Could be a little bit of each. But Alvarez, if Arsenal get a striker that can come back with 20 plus goals a season, that would make that team very, very dangerous. That's probably one of the positions that they're probably not as strong as other teams in. So I think it's in their interest to get it over the line. It might not be in the interest of their title contenders.
Indeed, indeed. Let's watch this space. If we now move on to Scottish football, so let's focus a bit on Rangers. So they were dumped out of the Europa League qualifying by Jagiellonia Bielstock. They lost 2-3 on aggregates, and they were booed off after a very limp second half showing at Ibrox. I believe that out of the first four games, they've lost two games and they've drawn two. But there was better news this weekend for Rangers. They absolutely thumped St Mirren 5-1, which is a great boost for the Glasgow Giants, who cycled through three permanent managers inside 12 months. It's obviously taking a bit of time because they have another coach. I think they've lost their key striker as well now. He unfortunately suffered a cruciate tear, so they will be looking for a new striker. But you expect them to be okay. Early season teething issues, especially with a new coach, that's normal. But any thoughts?
Yeah, over the season, they will be okay. Um, the jitters and the panic early doors, I think, unnecessary. Of course, fans, they were hitting the panic buttons early on because they care about the club. But new manager, new ideas. Sometimes it takes a little bit to sort of phase in. He did very well with St. Rangers Champions League opponents. I'm not even going to try and say the team name on that one. But yeah, I think as the season goes on, I think it's going to be Rangers, Celtic, you know, the big games, Old Firm derbies. Sadly, I think Hearts have probably lost too many players to compete at the same level as last year. But
We will come on to Hearts in a moment, but Celtic, so they learned that their Champions League playoff opponent is going to be Lask, so that's the Austrian side. And I think it's held this week, so it's either on the 18th or the 19th of August. I know that Martin O'Neill, he had a procedure quite recently. I don't know if he's back coaching the team, but if he's not, let's hope he gets well soon. We always call him Mr. Celtic, and that's who he is. But this weekend they had a great result in the Scottish League Cup. They beat Dundee United 4-0 away from home. They are starting to look good. The only thing I'll say about Celtic is I think their transfer activity has been a bit spartan. They could use a bit of a refresh in certain areas of the team, but there's still time. The window hasn't closed yet, and they've signed, is it Casper Ho, quite recently. So he's a forward, I think. So he can hopefully score up a lot more goals because I think that's what they need. Um, but yeah, I mean, as you just said about Rangers, they are the big two. They will be the ones that will be pushing for all trophies, all the expectations there. But that's
yeah,
Celtic.
I have no fear trying to pronounce Celtic's opponents. I can go with Lask.
Well, I think LASK is an abbreviation, so it's capital L,
I'm not
capital
trying the
A
rest of it
for
then.
fun. I haven't researched what LASK stands for, but I can look at that at some point. After that, if we move on to Hearts, so their Champions League dream, it ended. I think they lost 6-0 to Sturm Graz, who were also an Austrian team. Um, and that was sealed by a 2-0 home loss just weeks after the new head coach of theirs, Franken, arrived. So Hearts will now drop into the Europa League, where they face the winner of a tie. I think it's in between Benfica and St. Gallen, the Swiss team. So it's been a turbulent summer, as you said, Mark. They've lost their coach to Rangers, they've lost Shankland and Cammy Devlin also to Rangers. So the new coach Frank, and he's having to rebuild from a very, very difficult position. But much better news for Hearts in the Scottish League Cup. They beat Inverness 6-2, hugely impressive to provide their new coach and the fans with some much needed relief. So let's see if this is the turning of the corner for them. And
Yeah, it's a shame for Hearts, really, isn't it? I mean, hopefully they can get some kind of European football out of the season as reward for the performance last year. But sadly, they were a little outgunned in the first European tie.
yeah. And one final story from Scotland this week. It concerns the national teams. So they've appointed the very highly rated Sebastian Pocognoli as the national head coach. So I understand he's a title winner in his native Belgium with Union Saint Gilloise, and he has a reputation for playing aggressive, eye-catching football. So he's a modern coach. They all like to play that way, but beyond winning the title recently, I don't know that much about him, but I'm sure he's, got the job for having gone through a very, very rigorous process. So let's wish him well, and yeah, let's see what happens.
Yeah, more Scotland at tournaments. Why not?
Works for me.
Although saying that, we don't know if UEFA will be at the tournaments yet.
Well, that is something we will touch on, I'm sure, much more in the weeks ahead. So as the Prem comes back next week, we will be reverting to a more familiar format, including our favourite obscure facts section. And Mark, I believe that you have an obscure fact for us this week. So if I hand over to you, please.
Okay. This week was the Community Shield, so we've gone with a community/charity shield obscure fact. And we're going back to the 60s. It's 1961. Tottenham Hotspur do the double. So who did they play? They can't play the FA Cup winner. They won it. They can't play the league winner. They won it. No, they play an FA 11, a Football Association Select 11 that included players like Jimmy Armfield and Bobby Charlton. They play the game at White Hart Lane and they win 3-2 as well. Um, Doing the double, it wasn't done that often historically. I think just before Tottenham, you're looking at Aston Villa, really in the early days of football, and this is, there wasn't really a Charity Shield competition played then, so it wasn't an issue. It wasn't until the 80s that teams started to do the double a little bit more. And Liverpool, Everton, Liverpool did the double. They played Everton, who were the runners up in the league that year. And from that point on, that was when teams would play the league runner up if they did the double in the calendar year, in the season.
You've got to love that. I really do. Amazing. So that's all we have time for this week. So until the next time, keep the faith. Do like and subscribe to our channels on various social media and get involved there if you are so inclined. We are back sometime next week with more TMTG goodness. Till the next time, until all are one.